Cellular respiration. So it's a process in living organism, in the cell of the living organism, which involves in production of the energy, ATP. And typically in the living organism is use oxygen in order to produce ATP molecule, and carbon dioxide is released from as a byproduct from the oxidation reaction. And during oxidation, usually of the complex organic substances, food molecules, this is what's happening. So function again of the cellular respiration to produce energy, and it's occurring in the cell almost all living organisms, with exception of the some bacteria, which use other elements instead of the oxygen in order to produce ATP molecules. So they have different mechanisms. We will not talk about these few microorganisms. So in the eukaryotic cells, again, remember, karyote means nucleus and eu means they have this nucleus, more complex like plant and animals. So respiration, cellular respiration will be occurring in the mitochondria. In the prokaryotic cells, again, karyote means nucleus, pro means without nucleus. So this is more older type of the living organisms, such as bacteria, for example. So they cellular respiration located in the cellular membrane, not in the mitochondria, because prokaryotic cells, they do not have not only nucleus, but other membrane-bound organelles, such as mitochondria. And in here show just a basic chemical reaction which represent cellular respiration. So again, if we look on the cell, animal cell, like in this rabbit, they have in each cell, we will see a lot of mitochondria in here located. And inside, so this is the mitochondria, outer membrane and inner membrane in here, and matrix in here, matrix. So in the mitochondria, what will be happening? So rabbit will eat some food, some grass, for example, and his body will break down it into glucose. Rabbit will breathe, so oxygen will penetrate also to these cells. And when this oxygen and glucose from the blood will be delivered to the each cell of the animal, it will go directly to the mitochondria. So glucose and oxygen will move to the mitochondria. And inside of the mitochondria, it will use to produce energy. So this is the main purpose of this, a lot of energy. But byproduct of this will be water and carbon dioxide. And in here we can see, so this is the glucose, what food molecules, oxygen, what rabbit breathing, and when they in the mitochondria will be used this, what will be produced? Water molecules will be produced, carbon dioxide will be produced, and will be produced a lot of ATP molecules. We need it to move different these molecules, organelles inside of the cell. So each cell of the body requires these ATP molecules. So now we will compare what is this breathing and what is the cellular respiration. So this is different processes. During the breathing, like this boy, he breathes oxygen and it's moving to his lungs, and inside of the lung, between lungs and blood, will go exchange, yes, and oxygen will move into the blood, but carbon dioxide will leave the blood and it will be exhaled through the nose from the body. So we're removing carbon dioxide and we're breathing in oxygen, and in the lung it's moving to the blood. So this is what happened during the breathing. Next, blood will deliver this oxygen to all different cells in the body. Blood will deliver this, and it will move to the mitochondria. And here, a lot of mitochondria in this each cell. This is one separate cell. So inside of the cell, oxygen will be used by the mitochondria, but this boy also eating some food in here, showing pie. And from the food in the digestive system, it will be break down and glucose will be produced. So glucose will be distributed with blood to the different cells of the body, and it also will be in the end penetrate to the mitochondria. So both glucose or oxygen and glucose, they moving to the mitochondria, and inside of the mitochondria will happening the other net of the chain of the chemical reactions called cellular respiration. And during this process, energy will be produced, ATP molecule energy, and byproduct will be produced, such as carbon dioxide. So mitochondria produce carbon dioxide during chemical reaction called cellular respiration. So then this carbon dioxide will be diffused and leave the cells into the blood, and blood will deliver this carbon dioxide to the lungs, and from the blood it will move to the air in the lung, and we will exhale carbon dioxide. So this is what happening in the cellular respiration, happening inside of the cell, and it's go exchange between oxygen and glucose or food molecules will be produce energy, water, and carbon dioxide. Breathing is happening in the lungs, so between air in the lung and blood in here which circulate will be gas exchange, and oxygen from the air will move into the blood, and carbon dioxide from the blood will move to the air in the lung, and we will exhale it. So again, this is comparison. Breathing, exchange gases, oxygen, carbon dioxide between blood and outside air in the lung, what we have, and cellular respiration. So it's in the cells happening. For example, in here show muscle cells. This is very long cells with nucleus. So they require cells to exchange gases with surrounding also. So because mitochondria inside of the cells need oxygen for the cellular respiration to produce energy, and during this process carbon dioxide will be produced and it will move through the blood to outside. We will breathe out. So this is what you need to also understand, this difference. So cellular respiration is occur in 4 stages. So first stage is glycolysis. So this is when glucose will be break down with help of enzymes in the to pyruvate. So pyruvate will be produced. This is from 1 glucose, 2 pyruvates usually produce this different molecule. And during these processes, what will be produced? ATP, but it's not a lot. Only 1 molecule of the ATP will be produced. And during this process, also something will be produced. The other molecule, it's called NAD or NADH molecule. And NAD, what we look in here, NAD or nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide is same name. It's a vitamin B3, and it is coenzyme. It's not enzyme, it's a coenzyme. So coenzymes usually they help enzymes to perform cellular respiration. And NADH, what in here produced during glucolysis, is electron carrier. It means it's carry electrons. and it's produced during glycolysis in here. Next, when we look what happening with pyruvate, so will be second stage of the cellular respiration, and during this stage pyruvate will be break down during chemical reactions enzymatic to acetyl-CoA. Acetyl-CoA will be produced. In the same process, we will have the other byproduct, unnecessary product, we can say, carbon dioxide will be produced. And our body will get rid of it during, for example, when we're breathing out carbon dioxide. And during the same reaction will be produced NADH again. These coenzymes will be produced. Next stage of the cellular respiration called Krebs cycle or citric acid cycle. So it's the same name, and it's actually when acetyl-CoA molecule will be again break down to the smaller and smaller molecules, and this chemical reaction, it's a chain of them, they like in the cycle. This is why they call it Krebs cycle or citric acid cycle kind of. And during these chemical reactions, again, we will produce more carbon dioxide, and we will produce a lot of ATP molecules in here. And we will produce again some of the coenzymes. So this is all different type of the coenzymes. Next, all these coenzymes which carry, remember, electrons, a lot of electrons, these molecular electron carriers, and they will be used in the electron transport chain reactions. So this is last stage of the cellular respiration called electron transport chain reaction or chemiosmosis. And during this reaction, we will produce again ATP molecules. And it will go ahead and produce during this established proton gradient. So it will happening on the membrane kind of. And on one side, we will have high concentration of the protons. We will have a lot of protons. And on the other side of the membrane, we will have low concentration of the protons, and we will have special transmembrane proteins in here, which will use this gradient in here. And when these protons will move from one side, from area of the high concentration of the protons to the area of the low concentration of the protons, what will happening during this process, that more ATP molecules will be produced. From the ADP and phosphorus will be produced ATP molecules. So this is how this works. So now we will look on the mechanism of the action coenzymes. So how we already talked that coenzyme, or the other names for them, cofactors also, they help enzymes to perform their function. So first we will start with example of the coenzymes. So coenzymes, it's usually vitamins. And some of them in here, not P, fat. So this is again, they all act like electron carriers. They will carry electrons, so these protons, we can say like that, and represent. The other example of the similar kind of stuff with molecules, so it's called cofactors, and they include magnesium, manganese, iron, copper, zinc, calcium, and cobalt. So they can use also to help enzyme to perform their function. So we will look on the mechanism, how this happens. So in here show enzyme. and substrate cannot attach to this enzyme because it's inactive right now. It's not activated, and it will be activated only when this molecule coenzyme will be attached to the enzyme. So this is, do you see, it's a little bit lighter color, but this is the coenzyme. This is a coenzyme, and this is our enzyme. Yeah, this is the enzyme. So when coenzyme match directly in here to the, again, special shape in here of the enzyme, only after that what happened, enzyme now have this special active site. So this is what I'm drawing in the blue. This is the active site, and this active site will be for substrate. So this molecule is a substrate, and it will go and attach to this active site. So coenzymes or cofactors, they are activator of enzymes. They make enzyme in the active form. And after this, when coenzyme attached to the enzyme now can perform their function, and they can transform this substrate molecule to product molecule. So overall function of the coenzymes and cofactors to help enzyme to perform their function. So now we will look on the, again, cellular respiration. In particular, we will see where is these different steps happening. For example, glycolysis, where is in the cell it's occur, location of the glycolysis, and it's happening inside of the cell, in the cytoplasm or cytosol, we can say. So this is what's shown in here. Glycolysis, when glucose transform to the pyruvate molecule, and just one molecule of the ATP is produced, and NADPH coenzyme is produced during this reaction. It's happening outside of the mitochondria. Yes, so this first step of the cellular respiration occur in the cytoplasm or cytosol. So, and this occur outside of the mitochondria. Then pyruvate will move inside of the mitochondria. And Krebs cycle will take place in the matrix in here of the mitochondria. Then, during this Krebs cycle, we will produce a lot of ATP molecule, and we will produce several of these electron carrier or coenzymes. Then, last part in here of the cellular respiration, electron transport system or electron transport chain. So it's this enzyme for this. They will be located on the inner membrane of the mitochondria in here. Inside on the membrane, these enzymes will be located, and they will again be used. This enzyme will be using NADPH and all this coenzyme and produce again ATP molecules. So this is what's happening. So how you can see different processes of the cellular respiration occur in the different places. Glycolysis in the cytosol. It's not even in mitochondria. Krebs cycle in the matrix of the mitochondria. Electron transport chain in the inner mitochondria membrane. Now, so what we already cover how our body make energy from carbohydrates, and it's showing here. Carbohydrates break down, so complex carbohydrates break down to the simple one, sugars break down to the glucose monosaccharide, then glycolysis will be happening, and during this process pyruvate will be produced. Then in the next step acetylcholine will be produced, which will be used during the Krebs cycle. Carbon dioxide is produced during this process, and all during these processes we have a lot of electron carrier coenzymes produced, which will be used in the electron transport chain to produce energy. Again, ATP molecule and oxygen will be used, and water will be also produced. So this is all like products of the cellular respiration: energy, water, and oxygen. But again, we just look on this right now part. So how our body can produce energy from carbohydrates. But for example, if person do not eat carbohydrates, what happen next? So next, body will break down lipids in here, fats, and lipids and fats will be break down to the glycerol and fatty acids, and glycerol will be used to produce pyruvate. So we will skip glycolysis. This is what happening in here, and fatty acids will be used to produce acetyl-CoA. So this is different. And remember, during glycolysis, what happening? We produce actually in here also, not a lot, but some ATP ATP molecules. So when our body lack carbohydrates, next what will be used? Lipids will be used. And during this reaction, again, we will have pyruvate, we will have acetyl-CoA molecules produced from the glycerol and fatty acids, and they will be then used the same way as in the cellular respiration to produce energy, but we will have less energy because of that. Next, if person do not have in the diet carbohydrates, and if person do not have in the diet lipids, if person do not have lipids in the diet, what happen next? Next, body will break down proteins, muscles, for example, to produce amino acid. And amino acids will begin breakdown to the pyruvate. Amino acids will be breakdown to the acetyl-CoA and to the sum of these intermediate reactions in the Krebs cycle. So again, during this process, when our body will produce energy from the proteins, yes, so we will have again same in the end product in here. We will still produce energy, but we will have less energy because we lack glycolysis, first this is reaction. So energy in human life. So when we're eating different food in here, yes, carbohydrates, fats, and other molecules, what happening during metabolism? Our body will produce energy, and it will use the rest for the other chemical reactions, yes. But during these processes, like during the cellular respiration, we will use this food too. Some chemical waste will be produced. Byproducts such as carbon dioxide, water, and we will produce, our body will produce some heat. And heat is type of the energy, and it will be escaped from our body in the environment. So this is kind of how our body functioning. When we're eating it to produce energy, energy needed for metabolism, and some energy will be escaping the environment in form of the heat. Next, so what we already was covering, it was anaerobic respiration, cellular respiration using oxygen. But we have the other type of the respiration. It's fermentation call, and it's called anaerobic respiration. It's a negative. It means without, and aerobic mean oxygen. So this respiration and production of the energy happening without, when cells do not have oxygen. They use anaerobic respiration or fermentation to produce energy. In this case, glucose again will be break down to the pyruvatic acid and will be produced some, not a lot, but ATP molecules. We will also produce again some coenzymes, water will be produced, but then because we do not have oxygen, when oxygen not available, what happening next? So if this is organism, if we're talking about cells in the yeast, it's a microorganism, they will use different chemical reactions without oxygen, and it's called alcohol fermentation because yeast will produce from the pyruvate ethanol. Ethanol is an alcohol, and they will produce carbon dioxide. Where are people using this fermentation by the yeast? When we're baking something, we're putting yeast, so they use glucose, sugar, what we giving also in here when we're baking something. The yeast using glucose to produce carbon dioxide. And carbon dioxide is a gas. So this is what making bread big kind of, yes, fluffy. So this is all for baking with yeast. But in the human body, we also have some cells, such as muscle cells in the humans, and some bacteria. They can use also fermentation to produce energy. In this case, so when we, for example, doing a lot of exercise, yes, a lot of exercise, and our muscle cells, if this runner run very long time, and these muscle cells use all oxygen what available, they not have enough oxygen. What happening? Pyruvate in this case without oxygen will be breaking down to the lactic acid. And this is why it's called lactic acid fermentation. And again, muscle cells will produce some energy during this. Yes, we have some energy, but it's not enough. And lactic acid, so this is what can cause actually cramps after extensive exercise, pain in the muscles.